Okay, I am here in the home daycare and would you introduce yourself to us?
I'm Stacy Benson, and I operate Benson Home Child Care.
Okay, and Stacy, how many kids do you have at your daycare?
I have a total of 7 kids, but typically there's 5 to 6 a day.
Okay, I remember when I had mentioned this to somebody today, they said they didn't even realize that you were still running a daycare. And so, for those of you that are watching, Stacy's still out here.
Yeah.
She's still running a daycare, and we're doing a follow-up to the larger daycare story that we did about the last 2 standing. But Stacy emailed me and let me know that there are other daycares that are still running kids. And are they essential workers' kids?
Mine, for me, are considered essential. Like when the order came in on March 16th, we all had to shut down. I mean, I was sitting here on my couch and saw all these news stuff coming in saying we had to close, and I cried because it was like, what do I do? So Kathy Geringer, who is our local license person, I texted her and I'm like, what is this?
Where did you hear this? Did you hear it on the national news or on the state news?
I saw it on Facebook.
Okay.
Somebody had shared a post, and so I read this order, and it was very confusing because It said all daycares are closed, and then it said only essential personnel, and then but there were subsections to it,
Right.
and it said under 10 kids, and then there was all this other stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'm licensed for 10. I can have 10, but right now I don't have 10.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, maybe because it says less than 10, I'm okay. So I text Kathy, and I wasn't hearing anything, and so I'm like, I'm just gonna call her. So I called her, and she goes, honestly, we didn't know this was going on. She's like, she got phone calls of people being like, what is this? Like, what do we do? And so she said, she's like, for now, just open up like normal, like you would, and then, because that was Thursday night, so Friday morning, she's like, just open up, call the health inspector or health,
Wyoming State Health Department, yes.
She said, call public health and talk to them. So I called public health, and I talked to, I'm drawing a blank. I can't think of who I talked to because Nicole was busy, but it was
Somebody from the office.
Yeah, it was someone from the office, and
Right.
So she read the order, sent it to me. I have a copy of it if you want to look at it. And so she called me back and said, because I'm like, okay, what is an essential person? Like, what are you defining as an essential person? Because online they're saying it's, these are essential people. And then she said it was, like your police officers and
hospital workers.
Yeah, and that sort of
like
stuff. And so I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, but I have people who are at my daycare who are essential to their place of employment. Like,
Sure.
if they're not there, there's not a whole lot of people who can do their specific job. And
Right.
so she's like, well, this is, what it is. I'll send you the order. And I said, but I have less than 10 people. And she goes, well, if you can guarantee less than 10 people, and that means everybody in your house, because right now, my husband's furloughed, so he's not working, so he's going to be here. I'm here, and my 2 daughters are here because obviously they're not in school.
Sure.
And so I'm like, okay, that's 4 of us here, and based on the kids I have, she said, as long as it stays, you have 10 or less people, you're okay. So I'm like, okay. So she sent all this stuff. So I'm looking, well, the police chief, he called me and left a message and said, I know you're not in town anymore, but your daycare came across our desk, and I want to make sure you're still okay, that you're still able to open. So I'm like, okay. When all these orders started going through, the schools schools were shut down that Sunday before all this went through. I was already, like, some kids weren't coming that week anyways because of spring break. So it was like, okay, not a big deal. And then the following week, I had some kiddos that weren't coming because of already planned stuff.
Sure.
So for March, I had all that situated. It was like, okay, not that big a deal if some of these kids don't come because we've already got that planned. Not a huge deal. And so as time went on, you know, more stuff, they kept adding to it, you know, extending stuff. And so the last week of March, I texted all my families who weren't coming because by that point I had 2 kids coming. Right now I have 2 to 3 coming. So the ones that weren't coming, I texted them. I said, okay, what are we thinking for April? Because at that point, everything was only until April 3rd.
Correct.
And so everybody's like, well, let me kind of think about it. So I told them, the 1st of April, just let me know what you're thinking.
Right, and the order came down directed by the governor, obviously.
Right.
But it went from April 3rd, then it was extended to April 17th.
17th, yes.
And then to the 30th.
Yes.
So the people that weren't coming, now let me get this correct. You said that the police chief had talked to you and you guys were okay to run your daycare if you had under 10 people in the house. Correct. But you take up your husband, and your 2 daughters, that's 4. So you could have a maximum of 6
additional kids.
Okay.
Which, I mean, based on who I won't have that because I have, like, one of my families works with the school, so I don't have, I don't have that. And then some of my other families, their places of work have had them just work from home, so obviously they're not coming. I had, before, when parents were trying to figure out what to do for April, some of my parents were like, I don't know what to do, what should I do? And I just was like, you have to decide what you want to do. And then if you choose not to come, then, because none of us have ever done this. Like, I've been doing this since 2009, and this is the first that,
Well, I think this whole coronavirus, it's uncharted territory for all of us. None of us have gone through anything that's even close to this. But you guys, in the smaller daycares, you have different set of challenges, a different set of challenges that the larger daycares don't have. They're looking at the idea of paying for a building or paying for utilities, things like that. Whereas you've got your daycare at home, and you're actually living in your daycare and you're paying your utilities anyway. So you really wouldn't get to a point of, well, if we lost, let's say we got down to 2 kids, we'd have to shut it down. Well, you're not going to shut your house down.
Right.
So you're gonna actually be able to go anyway. How hard is it for you to, as a daycare provider, run an entire daycare with your whole family here?
It's been challenging. My husband and I, we've had practice being here together because, like I said, he's been furloughed since January, so he's been here.
And what's his name?
His name's Adam.
Adam, and he is in what branch of the service?
He works for the railroad.
Oh, he's a railroad
Yes,
worker.
he's
Okay.
a conductor.
Oh, okay.
So,
Which railroad does he work for?
out of BNSF.
Okay.
So
All right.
he's with those guys, and so
Now, when you say furloughed, I assumed that was military, but furloughed means that he is not able to work, or they've shut down everything in the railroad?
Well, okay, from what we've been told, because this is he started here in the railroad January of last year. So this January was his 1 year working there.
Right.
Typically in this area, they usually, like January, February, there's always, guys get furloughed for
Downtime.
Just for, usually it's like a month or something,
Okay.
maybe 2, and then everything starts back up. Well, with all this virus stuff,
Sure.
things haven't really started back up, and so Yeah, he's been furloughed since.
So are you a daycare worker wife that enlists your husband to help out with the daycare? Or do you have your daycare in a different portion of the house so that he does not have to deal with that?
The daycare is in, like, here. The kids all eat here. We play here in the living room, and then back there they sleep. He'll hibernate downstairs.
Okay, so he's got a man cave someplace in the house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where he'll hang out downstairs. I try and have him help. I mean, the kids all love him. They
Right.
like, he walks upstairs and they're all happy to have him here. And so, you know, he'll play with the kids and stuff. He won't change diapers. I've tried.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on. He's like, not my job. So
Yeah, he's not licensed for daycare.
no,
You are.
Yes. So, you know, he hangs out up here. We've learned. I'm gonna tell you, it was not easy when he first got furloughed. Like, because this is my workspace.
Yes.
And so, and I don't like people in my workspace. Like,
So it was kind of like a bring your husband to work day.
yes.
Only it was like a bring your husband to work month, 2 months, 3
yes,
months.
yes. And so we found a balance. Like, I mean, there's days where it's like, okay, can you go outside? Like, I just don't want you in here right now. But at the same time, it's nice to have him here because I've been doing this since 2009 by myself, no staff, and
Okay.
it gets very lonely.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I love the kids, but you can only have a conversation with a 2-year-old. You know,
Social interaction is not
Yeah.
at a peak performance.
right.
I was a stay-at-home dad, and so I had the opportunity to raise one of my sons by myself, and it was kind of nice. And we hung out, we became best friends, and it was kind of cool to have a 3-year-old as my best friend in the whole
Right.
world. And I had left the corporate world, and when I would go to corporate functions after that, you know, I'd been with him for a year now, staying home, and we'd go to these corporate functions, and somebody would say ultimately, "Did you read the you know, Mark, you're up on these title closings and things. What do you think about the newest article in Forbes?" And I said, you know, I hadn't really read Forbes, but Baby Bop had an incredible outfit on today, and so they didn't understand me, and I didn't understand them.
Right.
So I understand what you're saying.
Right. Well, that's like the running joke is, you know, when I would go out, you'd see someone and they're like, she's never quiet. And it's like, I talk to little kids all day. It's nice to talk to, you know, and
Adults.
so it's been nice having him here, but some days it's like, okay, you got to go do your thing.
Yeah.
'Cause
And what are your hours here, Stacy?
right now, I do like 7:30ish to 5:15.
Okay.
I have everyone gone by 5:15 because
Okay.
under normal circumstances, when my girls were in school and involved with after school stuff, we'd have dance lessons
Sure.
or music lessons like at 5:30. So I'd have everyone go so we could do our stuff in the
all
evening.
your family things.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now your girls are home now too now,
Yes.
and they're doing their school homework here.
Yes.
Does that pose a challenge?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, it's okay. So my girls are here in the summer, which not that huge a deal. They try and help out. They play with the kids and stuff. So I mean,
How old are they?
my oldest is 13, and our youngest is 8.
Okay,
8.
and their names?
Grace is our oldest, 13, and then Annalise is 8.
Annalise, that's a pretty name. A-N-A-L.
Annalise.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, sometimes with names, and of course that's why I always bring the camera and put that in my journalistic toolbox, is because for names sometimes, and I was a teacher, so, you know, it was nothing for me when I was younger to memorize 30, 40, 50
Oh, yeah.
names. I mean, when I was coaching, it was nice because I only had a squad of 12 on the basketball team, but now I get to the point where people ask me what their names are, and I'm like, well, you know, I bought a bottle of that ginkgo biloba, but I can't remember where I put the bottle.
Yeah.
And when I find the bottle, I can't figure out what I bought it for.
Well, speaking of names, there's some kids I've had, like my very first little daycare person I had, she's right in between my daughters. And so she's pretty much grown up with our family. Like
Sure.
my girls are really good friends with her and whatnot. And so still to this day, I will yell at her name, and all the kids just look at me like, who is that? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Just, it's a name. Like, just everyone come. And so, like, there's days, you yell out
all kinds of names.
Yeah, all 6 names.
It's okay, because you know who you mean.
Yeah, I know who I mean. They may not know,
Yeah,
but yeah.
exactly.
But as far as the girls being here, the whole school thing, Grace she's in 8th grade or 7th grade. And so she's easy. Like hers, she goes downstairs in the morning, and most of hers like done on Google Classroom.
Right.
So her teachers email her assignments, she'll do her Google Meet things, and she's like good to go. Like,
right.
I keep hounding her and make sure, did you get this done? Did you get this done? I'm sure she's tired of hearing it, but.
And did you guys get a directive yet whether they're going to go for the whole year? Are they going to go out for the whole year? Or
they've only said until, I don't remember if he extended it to the 30th or if it's, well, as of right now, I think it's been extended to the 30th of April.
Right.
And after that, we don't know. They haven't said one way or another.
Except Wyoming is one of the 21 states in the nation that has lobbied to keep the kids out for the rest of the school
Well,
year.
and that's kind of from what the governor said the other day, listening to his speech. He had made the comment, we need to figure out how next year's school year is going to be. So
Sure.
from that, I'm like, I really don't think we're going back. Like, I mean, we've kind of all had it in the back of our minds. That's probably not what's going to happen. So, like,
they're planning for the future already.
yes. Yeah. And so for Grace, this online schooling has been a breeze because she gets her stuff done. I mean, she misses, don't get me wrong, she misses her teachers, her friends, that social aspect of it.
Right.
Annalise, our youngest, it's been more of a challenge. Like,
Well, partially is because she's in that elementary school age where she needs a lot of teacher contact.
Yes.
So how does mom handle being a teacher in the elementary school system of Wheatland and run her own daycare at the same time?
Well, Friday we get her schoolwork. And so Sunday I take her planner and everything that's due for the week, I write down, and I'm like, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we're going to crack this stuff down and get what we can. And then Thursday, we'll spend, like, what we didn't get done. Thursday will be our, let's catch up and, fill in the blanks. And then Friday, we turn it in. This round, we have 2 weeks of homework. So now we don't have to, like, get it in by Friday. This next Friday, we have an additional week to do.
Sure.
Get everything. And so, it's been challenging because she wants to play with the kids. And so, we've kind of worked it out, made a deal where she'll get up in the morning and do maybe a math worksheet. And then she'll play a little bit with the kids. And then, at nap time, she'll read her 30 minutes, and then we'll try and do some other stuff. And then in the evening, she'll read another 30 minutes. And so,
but it's got to be a constant interruption for you.
Oh, yes.
It's that age. I think of my, I didn't have one. I had two of them around the same age. And so I'm sitting here in my mind trying to imagine what it would have been like having two 8-year-old boys in the house doing homework while I'm trying to run things like a construction or things like this. And thank God we saw some good things come out of the kids. But and Seth just graduated a couple of years ago from high school, so went on to finally get through it. But I can't even imagine what you must go through here. How do you handle the chaos and the stress sometimes?
Well, because I've only had like 2 kids,
sure,
it hasn't been, like, as far as that aspect, it hasn't been bad. Because, like, the 2 I have, well, in this week I had a third one. And the extra one I had this week, he likes to play with Annalise. And so I'm like, she's doing schoolwork right now. And so every 5 minutes, well, is she done yet? And I'm like, no, not yet. In a little bit. And so...
could be worse. You could be the parent having to take him on a long trip. So,
right. Well, he's a good kid. They're all good.
Yeah. But they just get into that.
Right.
There's no patience at that level.
Right. And so, like, the little two I have, they do really good playing together.
Sure.
They're, like, I always told people I'd rather have 10 2-year-olds to watch than a bunch of older kids. Because the little people, you give them some toys, and they're happy for hours. Like, they just play. And so, we've incorporated, like, when she reads, sometimes she'll read stories to the kids. So they like...
Oh, great idea.
So we count that as her minutes and whatnot, and so that's helped. And then like Grace, she usually gets through her stuff pretty quick, and so by the time she comes up here, she can kind of be, she'll play with the kids and whatnot. So then that kind of gives Annalise some time to do her stuff. But it's definitely been a challenge.
Yeah.
Like, my youngest is a pistol. And so we've had moments where she's gotten mad and she's stormed off, and it's like, okay, we will get through this. Like, I always joke with, like, Grace's principal, he's checked in to see how we're doing. The teachers have checked in and whatnot, and I always joke with them, I'm going to have a 3rd grade dropout. Like, it's just, I mean... Yeah.
What, as far as the coronavirus, now, we have a virus here that came with no end date. Mm-hmm. It's not like preparing for a weekend storm. I mean, you're dealing with all the externals, the toilet paper, the not being able to find food that you need, or going out to a restaurant and unwinding. And I'm sure that there's times where mom and dad need a date night, and mom and dad can't have a date night, and so that's gotta take its toll too. But economically now, with your husband being furloughed and you dropping to 2 kids, how has this affected you economically?
Well, the daycare's not bringing in, obviously, what I normally do. Luckily, we kind of knew he could possibly get furloughed, so we're planners. Mm-hmm. So, we planned for that. And it was like, okay, you being furloughed, we can make this work. Not that big a deal. This coronavirus thing is kind of thrown a loop, but we've
plan for it.
No, we've made it work. Like, okay, with the daycare business, especially like a home daycare, it's very up and down. Like, just when you think you can breathe, you can't, because you could be like, okay, everybody's here, we're doing good, and then you could have somebody like, well, we're moving, which happened to me this last fall. One of my families who I thought, we'd be, and then her husband got a job, and so she's like, we're moving, and so it was like, oh,
trying to find out more daycare.
You guys are moving. So you have that. And then, you might have a family who, they're having a baby. So then they go on maternity leave for a while. So this is stuff you can plan for. Yeah. This wasn't, like, we just kind of take it day by day.
Sure.
And
it's kind of an evolving, that's an evolving and a revolving door as far as daycares go. Mm-hmm. Things like this, planning for your food, planning for your supplies, planning for, if you're using a curriculum, things like this. What do you see as far as, the idea of maybe taking kids of a different age? And what are your ages for your daycare?
Well, right now it's what they say birth, which typically the youngest I've had is 6 weeks old. Okay. And then usually everybody goes by the time they start kindergarten. Okay. Occasionally I might have, like, if I have a sibling and, like, say their older sibling starts kindergarten, then they might come after school. But right now, everybody's under that. Like, I have one, she'll start kindergarten this year. Sure. So that we've planned on, like, she'll be gone or whatever. And so,
and the door swings again.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you advertise your daycare? And, when you have openings, what means do you use to refill and replenish your daycare?
Well, a lot of it's word of mouth, or just people who know us. And then, like, my families have referred people. when I first started, I put like an ad out in the paper or something. I did this fall when one of my families, when they were moving, I put a thing out on Facebook and said, hey, I have an opening.
Sure.
For the most part, it's just kind of word of mouth. As far as my infant spots, because like I take infants, and then I think there's maybe one or two other daycares that might take infants, but typically
that still are able to have kids. Now you said there's 2 other daycares that are they still taking in kids, or are they home daycares?
One of the other daycares is a home daycare.
Okay.
And I haven't talked to her, but my friend lives over by her or something,
right.
and said she thought she had like 1 or 2 kids still. So I mean, she's kind of in the same boat. The rest of us are.
Sure.
Most of us.
So you're the
down.
spokesperson. The spokesperson for the smaller daycares.
Well, I guess because no one else. I don't think has anyone if any of them contacted you. And then the other one, I think she's considered a family child care something. It's not a home daycare, but it's not a center.
Right.
Because hers is, so like a home daycare, you can have up to 10 kids.
Right.
And then the next level, I think it's 15 kids, and that can be either in your home or
in a facility.
Like next to your house or something is where it is. And then you've got the centers where you can have like Piccadilly and Kids Castle, where they have more kids. And so as far as them, I don't know specifically how many kids they have or if they're for sure open, but other than the one, just my friend saying she thought she had 1 or 2 kids.
And you've still got a few openings here, so if anybody's watching and they have kids at home that are they need to have some daycare, there's an opening here. But it seems like you're getting through this. It seems like your head is pretty level as far as going through this and adjusting to a lot of the things that have really faced you. What do you tell people out there right now that are facing this coronavirus that are just panicking? What's your word as a fairly level-headed person that's running not only a daycare but managing family during this coronavirus? What's your advice to them? How do you become so successful at what you're doing?
Well, I guess as far as like for my daycare, I've had the ups and downs. Like when I started out, I've had people over the years be like, oh, daycare's so easy to get into. And it's like, no, there's a lot of stuff you have to do to get into it. And it's by no means easy. The first year I started, I got a second job because I quit a full-time steady paying job so I could stay home with my oldest, because at the time we couldn't, because of her being born prematurely, they told us not to put her in daycare. And then when she could go into daycare, what we needed wasn't available because we only needed, a few days a week. And so that's when we decided, let's open our own. And that way maybe we can cater to those people who only need a few days a week. Now, times have changed to where I can see why places were like, no, we need, you need 5 days or whatever because of limited space and whatnot. But so like starting out, I had to find a second job because, it takes a while to build up your client base. And then once I built up, things were going good, and then I dropped the bombshell. I was pregnant with my youngest, and it was considered high risk because of my first pregnancy. And so that kind of threw everyone for a loop because it was like, okay, I at a moment's notice could be like, hey, I can't work anymore type thing. And so through that, I had everybody until like the end of the school year, and then that's when a lot of openings with the other daycares happen. And so people went to other places because I was going to go on maternity leave the beginning of no, the end of September. So the September 1st was when I was starting maternity leave at the time.
Sure.
And so, I mean, I had a lot of people when they found openings left that summer, which, I mean, was kind of a blessing because being 7-8 months pregnant, watching. And then I was on maternity leave for like 3 months. And so when I came back, I had 2 families who were like, well, we'll come back when you open back up.
You're
and
right.
so then I was back to that building up phase again. And so you do that. And so, like, as far as this, like, not having kids, there shouldn't be, like, hopefully that build up phase again, because the issue now is our families aren't, there's families working from home.
Right.
Right. Whereas, they didn't leave on their own. It was,
Right.
we have
See,
to
that's a
work from
challenge in
home.
itself, where people have got to work at home as a family.
Well, and
Much less have your business run out of your home.
Well, and that was a thing, like, when all this started coming up and they were telling people, you need to prepare for working from home. I'm sitting there like, I already work from home. Like, if people are forced to work from home, there goes my kids. Like,
Yeah.
what do I do? And as a, because I don't work like a normal, like, for a company or
Sure.
something, I don't have some of the stuff available to me that other companies
Right.
have,
Right.
like, I mean, if all my families are gone, like,
Sure.
other than trying to fill in with essential personnel and whatnot. And so our local licensor, they've sent out, like, even through, like, the state, they've tried to accommodate, like, people who, like, daycares that have chosen to close. They've said, we have substitute people who want to work, whereas, I mean, I don't need personnel. And so then they talked about, if there's essential personnel who need spots because the other places have filled up. And so for it being kind of a small community here, chances are most your people, like, my husband and I talked about this, and I said, chances are there probably aren't going to be, like, people looking, because they probably have a spouse who's out of work. So somebody's going to be
That's a
home.
good point.
Or there's siblings at home.
Somebody's going to start taking care of the kids.
Yes. And so, I mean, not that you want that to fall
Right,
onto your
right.
older kids and whatnot, but I mean, that's kind of like summertime is typically a slow time
Sure.
for daycares, because you've got high school kids who are home and older siblings. And so sometimes parents pull kids in the summer
Correct.
to stay home, with that aspect. And so, so there was the thought, okay, if there's a possibility, there's other people who need daycare, then there's that option. And so I've contacted Kathy here in town, and I've asked her, I said, what's the status of that? And so from what she told me last time I contacted her, she said right now there's plenty of spots available. There's not the people to fill them, because
Right.
there may be a person at home, or
And you're licensed for daycare, though. And do you have your own corporation as far as for your daycare?
well, I'm considered a sole proprietor.
Okay. Do you have a name for your daycare?
Benson Home Child Care.
Benson Home Child Care. Okay. Pretty simple. And you do have all your licensing and everything is up on the up and up here.
Yep.
And I know there's some people that have to be licensed for different age groups and things like that. But Stacy, where are you and your husband both from this area?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, for the most. I mean, my parents moved here when I was in 2nd grade.
Okay.
And so I've lived here pretty much my entire life. My husband, his stepdad was from here.
Okay.
And so, but I mean, otherwise his mom lives here, and he moved here, I think, his freshman year of high school. So I mean, you could say
Yeah.
we're
So
from
you
here.
guys both have a pretty good feel for this community and what the community needs and things like this. What prompted you to open a daycare?
Because my oldest.
Your oldest with the special needs.
Well, she just was born early, and
Right.
like, I mean, we got lucky. The only thing, she was just small for her
Yeah.
her size, and so they had sent her to Presbyterian St. Luke's in Fort Collins, or Denver, not Fort Collins, but Denver, and so she spent 2 weeks in the NICU there, and then we got to bring her home. Well, before we brought her home, they told us absolutely, like, no daycare her first year because of her small size and the risk of RSV and stuff. And so at that time, my husband was working shift work, so between him and my mom would take her, and then I would bring her to work with me when I worked at the chamber, like 1 day a week or something. I tried limiting it.
And you're the former chamber president here, right?
Executive director.
Executive director. And how long did you have that position?
I started, let's see, I was interim director, I think April of 2007, and then they had to do the whole hiring process thing, and then I think I got it that summer.
Okay.
And then I took that position until my last day was March of 2009.
Okay.
And then April 1st, I opened.
Your daycare. Okay, so you went right out of the proverbial corporate frying pan into your own business.
Yes.
Well, Stacy, it's been wonderful talking to you today. To get this perspective, this is a perspective we have not seen, where we've got actually somebody running their actual business out of their home that actually involves the children. You know, a lot of people that are running their businesses out of their homes don't have their clients running around their kitchen.
No.
You know.
Well, and that's the other side of it, where it's like, okay, I'm exposing my family because I've got, people coming in who, parents drop their kids off and they're not here very long, but you're still, there's that element of exposure. And so I've told my parents, I'm like, okay, we always try to have a pretty strict sick policy, if your kids are sick, keep them home, that sort of thing.
Right.
But now with this whole coronavirus thing, it's really scary because you don't know, anybody who has little kids you could have one, they could get a low-grade fever with a tooth or something. And so they might get a fever and it's like, I don't know what, is this, what is
Yeah, and with kids in daycare, if one kid gets sick, a lot of them get sick, which is really a scary thing. But the idea that you're actually putting yourself out here, I thought to myself the other day, it's interesting that this virus that now has killed so many people started in one person. One person in the whole world. How intimidating would that be? Well, I wouldn't be intimidated. Well, look at the numbers now. So, we can't really assume anything, and we can't really assume that it's not going to hit here.
Right.
And although we're still clean in Platte County, you never know.
Right.
So, what precautions are you using?
Okay, the big thing they keep preaching is hand washing, clean hygiene, make sure you're clean. Everybody who knows me, I'm a neat freak. So, pretty much the way you see it right now.
People that are watching on television, she really is a neat freak. I had to take my shoes off outside in the street. I couldn't even walk across her front yard with my shoes on. So, no, it's not quite that bad, but she is a neat freak, trust me.
The way you see it now is pretty much how it is all the time. Now the kids will have toys, and they're playing with toys. Right now, all the toys are put away because, I clean the toys every day. But that was nothing that I didn't do before.
Right.
Because I've learned over the years, for licensing requirements and whatnot, they want that stuff cleaned, at least once a week.
Right.
More if kids are sick. Well, I've learned over the years that you just clean that stuff every day because it helps cut back on germs. And so
do you teach the kids how to wash their hands or anything like that?
The kids
so you're instructing them using the coronavirus as a teaching tool.
So the kids, we all wash our hands before we eat. We wash them after we eat. If they're in the ones that can go to the bathroom, we wash hands.
not touching their faces,
Right.
or anybody else's
Right.
faces,
Yes, and
which is the big one.
I mean, we always talk about, they want to hug each other, and it's like air hugs or
Yeah.
blow kisses or stuff. Because with little kids, like they tell you that 6 feet of space. I mean, it's hard to be like, okay, you have to play
Absolutely.
over here, and so. But on the other hand, you're trying to keep everything normal for
Right.
because these little people don't understand. I mean, I sit
Right.
there and look at my girls, and I mean, there's days where I break down and cry. Like you try not to do it in front of them, but it's like,
Right.
I mean, how do you explain to them?
Sure.
You can't go to school. Like my youngest is like, are we doing this next year? And I'm like, I hope not, because.
Hopefully we've learned something from this.
And so, I mean, we just, somebody sneezes, you go wash your hands.
Sure.
Right now, it's like someone coughs or sneezes, it's like, why are you doing that? Like, what is wrong? And so, but then, on the other hand, because we don't have very many of us here, there's not, as far as being exposed to
Sure.
stuff, there's just not
The exposure level's not that bad.
like and like they say,
It's not like you're working at a Denver daycare either,
right?
where you have all these kids, and even the non-essentials. I mean, having more than 10, but you can't have more than 10 in the same area.
Mm-hmm.
But they're coming from a virus-riddled area where you never know,
Right.
what's walking into your daycare.
Right. And we tried, because earlier this year, I think it was the end of January, we had a cold that just kind of wiped all the kids out. It was crazy. And so I half joking before all this coronavirus stuff that I'm like, I'm just going to buy face masks. So when we start having coughs and runny noses, everybody who's coughing and has runny nose, we're going to play doctor, and you're going to we'll wear face masks. And
That's really
so we did that. Like for a few weeks, we had some kids that had kind of the sniffles, and it worked. I mean, as far as it not spreading
Sure.
among them, like stuff, one gets cold and you spend
Yeah.
3 weeks battling a cold between everybody. We did the ones that were sniffly and sneezing with the cold. I mean, it was a minor cold at that point. And so I was like, okay, we have to play doctor, so you have to have a doctor's mask.
Sure.
And so they were okay with it, and I even had parents who were like, I had one mom, she dropped off her kid and she's like, well, today you're probably going to have to play doctor because he's kind of got a cough. So I'm like, okay, and so we did that for like a week or two. And then out of all of them I had coming, 2 of them passed that cold to each other, but it was because one of them stuck their finger in the mouth of the other one and then caught it. But I had one little one who had been here the entire time through it all and
Never was affected.
and never got it. And so I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do if we get colds and whatnot. And so now with all this stuff, like nobody really knows, like, what if you get a little person who might get a cold or something? Like, what
Sure.
do you do? And so, I mean, I usually try, if it's nice out, like 40, 50 degrees, I got a window open and we're getting fresh air in here. Last week we got to play outside. This week, because of the weather, we didn't get to play outside, but like next week it's supposed to be nice. We're going to be outside, like as much as we can be.
Sure.
We'll be outside just because.
I would have had them doing snow angels yesterday, but which with the snow. But it's interesting with daycare workers too, and I know we have to wrap this up, but you should probably have a shelf here with all the hats that you wear as a daycare worker, with your doctor's hat and your nurse's hat and your chef's hat.
Oh yes.
And your transportation taxi and your Uber hat and
yes.
your teaching hat. I mean, you are not just. And a lot of people don't realize all the things that a daycare worker
Right.
has to do.
Right.
And I don't know, but like I said, being a stay-at-home dad, and it was one thing with my kids, but I went into secondary education just so I didn't have to do elementary education
Yeah.
because I was exhausted at the end of the day. You know, I would be down watching television with your husband right now, you know, if that was going on. But that's just me, you know. Some of us are programmed for it, and some are not.
There are good days and there are bad days. But I mean, I've lucked out. I've had really good kids. Like most of them, I'm really close with. I mean, with it being Wheatland, most everybody knows everybody, and so I would say most of the kids I've had, somehow you've had some sort of affiliation with them.
Right.
Like, I mean, I had some kids, I went to school with their parents, and you'd never think in a million years you'd go to school with their parents. My best friend, her kids, her husband, I went to school with him. If you would have told me back in high school I would be hanging out with him, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. Like, and him and I have had this conversation where he said, if you would have told me I would be raising 2 daughters, he's like, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. Like this. And so, I mean, we talk about that, how, there's just,
wait till you get into this long enough so that some of the kids you babysat for when you were a teenager are now parents.
Oh, yes.
And want you to be the daycare provider for their kids.
Well, that's like one of my little people I have. His mom, I remember her when she was in kindergarten. And now I have her kid, and so it's kind of funny how all that works. And then, I mean, even like the little girl I have who my daughters are really good friends with. Like, I mean, she's in grade school now, almost starting middle school. And I had her when she was, itty bitty, and it's like, it's crazy. Like, we used to joke when I was watching her parents and I would joke that we had shared custody. And so, because, I mean, she was like part of the family.
Sure.
Like, she went everywhere with us. Even to this day, when her parents are going to leave town, we are her first call, and she's like, can I stay at your house? Last summer, she pretty much lived at our house. Her mom would have to come and be like, okay, you have to come home tonight, but you can come back tomorrow. And so, I mean, there's some kids, you get that kind of relationship. It's harder now because my girls are older, so they're not the same age as the daycare kids now. But then I have parents who are like, oh, we know kids who we could be our babysitters, date night babysitters or whatever. So
yeah, and that's a good thing, and I think that's really important. But again, Stacy, just thank you so much for allowing me into your daycare /home / man cave / Sunday school teaching rooms, things like this. I wish you the best going forward, and we're going to all get through this. And it's not going to be very much longer, I don't feel. And
hopefully
things will get into a new normal for all of us.
Yes.
So thank you, Stacy.
Yes.